And when it was determined that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. And entering into a ship from Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail along the coasts of Asia, one Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. And the next day we touched at Sidon. And Julius courteously treated Paul, and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. And when we had launched from thence, we sailed under the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing for Italy, and he put us aboard. And when we had sailed slowly many days and scarcely had come as far as Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under the lee of Crete off Salmone. And, with difficulty passing by it, we came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh unto the city of Lycia. Now after much time had been lost, and when sailing was now dangerous because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them, and said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be attended by hurt and much damage, not only to the lading and ship, but also to our lives. Nevertheless the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship, rather than those things which were spoken by Paul. And because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the greater number advised to depart thence also, hoping that by some means they might attain Phoenix, which is a haven of Crete, and lieth toward the southwest and northwest, and there to winter. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, casting loose from thence, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after, there arose against it a tempestuous wind, called Euroclydon. And when the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive. And running under the lee of a certain island, which is called Clauda, we had much work in securing the boat. Which when they had taken up, they used helps to undergird the ship. And fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands, they struck sail, and so were driven. And being exceedingly tossed by a tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. And the third day we cast out with our own hands the ship's tackle. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. But after long fasting, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and should not have cast loose from Crete and suffered this harm and loss. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship only. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Therefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, and that it shall be even as it was told to me. None the less, we must be cast upon a certain island. But when the 14th night had come, as we were being driven up and down in the Adriatic, about midnight the shipmen deemed that we were drawing near to some land. And they took a sounding and found it to be 20 fathoms deep, and when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. Then, fearing lest we should be driven upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern, and wished for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee from the ship, and had let down the boat into the sea under the pretext that they would cast anchors out of the prow, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Unless these remain in the ship, ye cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat, and let her fall off. And as the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Therefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health, for there shall not a hair fall from the head of any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all, and when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then they were all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And we were in all on the ship, 260 souls. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosed the rudder ropes, and hoisted up the mainsail into the wind, and made toward shore. And falling into a place where 2 currents met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast and remained immovable, but the stern began to break up with the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, desiring to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that those who could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land. And the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they all escaped safely to land.